first caller in here, but I'm going to start the topic right now. Who is the biggest remaining threat in the NFC to the San Francisco 49ers? Is it their matchup this Saturday with the Green Bay Packers? Do you see the Detroit Lions or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers posing an even bigger threat to the 49ers in their route to making the Super Bowl February 11th, a trip to Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas? Who is the biggest threat remaining in the NFC and why? Your call's next. 808 KNBR is the number. SportsPhone, live and local, is back. You're listening to KNBR 104.5, 680, the sports leader.
Warriors assistant coach Milojević passed away at the age of 46 early this morning. The Warriors game in Utah this evening has been postponed. There's more on that story. It's trending on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
This is SportsPhone KNBR. Dial the digits or send us a text at 415-808-KNBR. We're streaming on YouTube all damn day at KNBR 1045.
Folks, they say radio is not a visual medium, but the phone lines are lit up right now. I love what I see. We got 6 callers on the board. We're trying to get more. It's SportsPhone KNBR. Kerry Crowley, your host this evening. Who poses the biggest threat to the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC? We'll get to your calls in just a moment. KNBR Sports Phone is presented by Industrial Metal Supply, online at industrialmetalsupply.com. It's metal made easy. Scott in San Francisco. You're our first caller of the evening. Welcome to Sports Phone. How are you?
I'm great. I love your podcast and your YouTube show, so I'm glad you're on the air tonight.
Thank you so much, Scott. Who's the biggest threat? Who's the biggest threat to the San Francisco 49ers right now in the NFC?
I don't know. I mean, Jordan Love has been cooking, so
yeah.
I'm going to the game, but I'm kind of nervous, and I don't like that I'm nervous, but I think the fact that the elements are going to be there. I mean, obviously both teams have to contend with the elements. So some people are saying, well, it bodes well for the Packers. Well, the Packers and the Niners are going to have to play in the rain and slosh around. So I might say Green Bay right now just because they're cooking, but I am so glad that Armstead is going to be back on that D-line because
huge.
His presence when he's there versus when he's not there, I mean, stopping the run. I mean, of course, that game with Baltimore, they ran all over, but Armstead's presence, it cannot be understated because when he stops the run, that just alleviates so much pressure, and then the offense can go out there and do their thing. And I mean, I think it's going to be one hell of a game.
Yeah, I do too, Scott. I appreciate the call. Thank you for your time this evening. 808-KNBR is the number. Who's the biggest threat to the San Francisco 49ers? I have to admit, I agree with the fact that Eric Armstead really changes the game from a defensive standpoint because this Green Bay Packers team, Aaron Jones, he's actually one of my favorite running backs to watch when I'm not watching the 49ers, looking around the league. I think this guy's incredibly talented. What he can do for this Green Bay offense, it opens things up for Jordan Love. But having Eric Armstead, he's a big-time playoff performer. A lot of people chimed in last night that he's their X factor. Agree with all those people. We're going out to Paul in Pacifica. Paul in Pacifica, you're on Sports Phone. Paul, who's the biggest threat to the 49ers in your eyes?
Honestly, I think it's the referees and turnovers because they have the best team in the NFC.
Yes.
So if they play their game and the refs don't get in the way and don't turn the ball over, none of these teams remaining should stand in their way. My concern is more facing one of those Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, running quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. That's more my concern. But, yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. They don't make mistakes and the referees don't get in the way. I think we're Super Bowl bound.
Yeah, well said, Paul. Thank you for the call. And I'll say this, just to echo what you just said, Jordan Love has been on a great run right now for Green Bay of not turning the ball over. That's been the difference for the Green Bay Packers. I think it goes without saying, every analyst says this every week when it comes to football. I'm going to be a broken record here. Whichever team wins the turnover battle really positions itself to win the game. but the Packers' numbers are so stark. When Jordan Love turns the ball over, they almost always lose. When Jordan Love has great ball security and does not turn the ball over, they almost always win. And so the 49ers have to take the ball away. It's on Nick Bosa. It's on Eric Armstead to get to the quarterback. Strip sack, it's on Mooney, Ward, and the secondary to come up with big plays. Let's keep these phone lines rolling. 808 KNBR is the number. Who is the biggest threat to the San Francisco 49ers? Is it the Green Bay Packers, or is it another team that they could face in the NFC Championship game? Sam in New York. Sam in New York, you're on KNBR. Sam, who's the biggest threat?
I think the Detroit Lions are probably the biggest threat if we're just going off of teams left in the NFC. Only really two reasons. I think they have the most robust run game with Gibbs and Montgomery, and teams that can run the ball really well have generally done well against the 49ers defense this season. That, and I also think they have the best defense out of the three remaining teams. But not looking past the Packers, I think they're really good. Love's playing out of his mind, and I really like them because they are giving me hope for the San Francisco Giants in 2024.
There we go. Don't think I've heard that much San Francisco Giants hope. So, Sam, thank you for the call. I appreciate that one. And I think that what you just said about the Lions, I was looking today because the Bucs really popped on film on Monday night against the Philadelphia Eagles. That defense looked so good. And maybe it was easy to look good against the Eagles with the way that they've played. And A.J. Brown, of course, not being in the equation for Philadelphia on Monday night. But I looked up at the stats today, and the Lions, to me, may be better defensively than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know, some categories, I think points per game, the Bucs have the edge. Lions maybe in yards and sacks, but there's a number of different factors to keep in mind. One thing to keep in mind with this Green Bay Packers team, it has not stopped the run well all season long. Trent Williams at left tackle, going to be huge for the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey, well rested. Pivotal that he gets off to a great start in the first corner. We're going out to Budman in Sunnyvale. Budman in Sunnyvale, you're on SportsPhone. Who's the biggest threat to the 49ers in the NFC right now?
I think it's this weekend, partly because of the nature of the game. So we've got the rest versus rust issue coming up. It's a potential trap game, lower seed against higher seed. And they're a lot like us from the same coaching tree, right?
Yeah.
And if their quarterback plays better than ours, that's tough, but that's not necessarily Shanahan's strong point. He likes to. He and we tend to be front runners. It's not a criticism, just observation, right?
Yeah.
So I think. Oh, and one more thing: the weather. It's not the same for both teams because you got one team that comes from the NFC North. It's like practically the North Pole compared to here, and another that are, where fair weather, we've been called, not as an insult, we've been called somewhat of a dome team, where we just like to air it out and have a nice neutral weather background. So that may hit us worse. I'm not panicked, but I do think this is our biggest challenge.
Well said, Bud, man. Appreciate the phone call. And I think you're right. The weather's a very interesting part of this equation on Saturday. And look, I'm not going to talk too in-depth about the weather until Friday night here on SportsPhone when we'll make the call, ask for your predictions at that time going into Saturday's game at Levi's Stadium. But I do think that is something on everyone's mind, certainly on the minds of everyone on these coaching staffs, both for San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan, and Matt LaFleur's Green Bay Packers coaching staff. One more call before we get to break, but we're going to keep this conversation rolling up to about 7 o'clock here, continuing to talk the biggest threats to the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC. Daniel in Sacramento, you've been on the line for a while. Daniel in Sacramento, you're on SportsPhone. Who's the biggest threat?
Right now, you got the Detroit Lions as the biggest threat. They've got the mojo going, haven't won in years. Their coach has them pumped up. They have Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive line that can get to the quarterback. And they're going to pound the rock against Green Bay, take care of business. They're far too prepared. They don't have rust. They've been practicing hard. Kyle did it right. Had them in pads a couple days, hitting hard, popping. They're ready. They're going to pound the rock against Green Bay and take care of business. Detroit, they should beat them too, but they've got the magic going right now. So they've got to give the pressure to Goff. He surprised me this last weekend. He stepped up and took care of business when the pressure was on. And the whole storyline of, quarterback swapping cities, and he took care of business. But I think if we get in his head early, we can take care of Detroit.
Love the call.
So-
Thank you so much, Daniel. Daniel in Sacramento, appreciate you. Don't mean to cut you off, but we do have to hit a quick commercial break. Right now, the board is lit up. I got Dan in Discovery Bay, Brian on 280, Greg in Irvine, Chris in Berkeley, Alan in San Mateo. Your calls on the other side, folks. This is your show. SportsPhone KNBR, back live and local every weeknight until 9 o'clock. You're listening to KNBR 104.5, 680, the sports leader.
Sound off on the sports leader. SportsPhone KNBR keeps rolling right here and on the all-new KNBR app.
Live, local, and back on the airwaves. SportsPhone KNBR, your show, Bay Area. Previewing 49ers and Packers on Saturday at Levi Stadium. NFC divisional round. These two teams have incredible playoff history against one another. And recently, the San Francisco 49ers have dominated. But you have to take Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers seriously. This is not your run-of-the-mill 7 seed. This is a team that's 8-3 in its last 11 games. They are hot. My question for you, are the Green Bay Packers the biggest threat remaining to the 49ers in the NFC? Do you see the Detroit Lions or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers being a bigger threat down the road if the 49ers make the NFC Championship game, as we all expect? 808 KNBR is the number. Call, text. The phone lines are lit up. Let's see, who's been on the line longest? Dan in Discovery Bay. Dan in Discovery Bay, you're on SportsPhone. Thanks so much for patiently waiting. Who's the biggest threat to the 49ers?
The Niners are the biggest threat to themselves.
Well
We're
said.
stacked. We got the talent.
Yeah. Any particular reason that you've got concern that they might mess things up themselves? Is it playing from behind? Is it the weather? What in your mind could the 49ers do wrong that would hurt themselves in the way to a Super Bowl?
It's the turnovers that worry me, but I'm a fan of the 80s and 90s, and we used to know we were just going to beat people. This team that with Brock and the weapons we got, we're good.
There you go.
Bring that confidence back. The swagger needs to come back to Levi like it was at the stick. We knew we were just going to stomp people.
There you go, Dan in Discovery Bay. Appreciate the phone call. Thank you for your perspective. And I love getting calls from people who've been 49ers fans through the 80s, through the 90s. I have to remind you, folks my age have never seen the 49ers win a Super Bowl, or at least when they did, the last time the 49ers won a Super Bowl, I was too young to remember. And I'm guessing there's many people out there on the roads tonight driving home from work who are waiting patiently for Saturday because you too have never seen the 49ers win a Super Bowl. You've heard the great stories of the 80s and 90s. You know the legacies of Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, Steve Young. But you want the 49ers to start building their own legacy for your generation so you can connect to folks of the past. Who is the biggest threat to the San Francisco 49ers? Who is standing in their way from getting to the Super Bowl and having the opportunity to face off against the Baltimore Ravens, Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, or the upstart Houston Texans? Greg in Irvine. Greg in Irvine, you're on KNBR. Greg, who's the biggest threat in your mind?
I mean, I'd have to agree with the last caller, probably the 49ers. But I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah, let's hear it.
The Niners don't win the Super Bowl. Do you think someone's on the hot seat?
Oh, that's a tough question. So let me put it to you this way, Greg. I don't think someone's on the hot seat, but I think that potentially 1 or 2 years from now, that could be the case. And I don't think 49ers fans are ready to think about that right now. I don't think 49ers fans could even consider that because this team's been so dominant and you don't mess up regular season success. But at some point, maybe I'll talk about this in the 7 o'clock hour, if they don't win a Super Bowl, if they don't complete this quest for 6, then you start talking about the 49ers the way that people talk about the Los Angeles Dodgers, the team that has all the stars but can't win when it counts. So, Greg, appreciate the phone call, appreciate the question. I hope it's not a question that we'll be having to discuss next week about hot seats, about who the pressure's on, because this 49ers team played so well all season long. And I think the expectation from many of us, and we'll do game predictions on Friday night throughout the 6 o'clock hour, the expectation from many of us is that this team is going to roll. They're healthy. They're rested. There are no excuses right now. Brian on 280. Brian on 280 driving out this evening. Who is the biggest threat in your mind to the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC?
Well, hey, first of all, Kerry, I'd like to say it's great to hear you back on the air. It's great to have the 6 o'clock hour and the sports talk going again in the evening. I missed it a lot. I think just based on what I saw when LA and Detroit played, I think Detroit is the scary team.
Yeah.
Mainly because they seem a lot more mature. Green Bay's a lot of young players. They're probably a year away from really showing who they are, even though they're rolling. But Detroit looks pretty scary, and it seems like Goff is got full control of the offense and their defense and their running game. They just seem like a pretty complete team.
Yeah, well said. And I really like the coaching on that team. Brian, thank you for the call. I love what Dan Campbell has done for the Detroit Lions. I love their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson. I think he's one of the best names in this cycle. It's a creative offense. They have managed to get just as much or maybe even more out of Jared Goff than Sean McVay, who is seen as, a renaissance man, would change NFL coaching as we knew it because he was hired so young and had success so early. And the Detroit Lions have gotten more out of Jared Goff this season than I think Sean McVay did in the year that they went to the Super Bowl and ultimately lost to the New England Patriots. So you can make the case that the Detroit Lions are absolutely the biggest threat. We've got lit up phone lines right now. I see you, Alan and San Mateo. I see you, Jay. I see you, Buck. I see you, Alex. Do want to read a few texts right now from the 707. Injuries are the only thing stopping the 49ers, period. That's from Steven in Vallejo. 707 chiming in. The 49ers themselves are the only thing standing in the way. 408 saying that Detroit has the most complete team when compared to other teams in the NFC. If you're catching us on YouTube this evening, if you're catching us on Twitch, we've got AJ chiming in. It might be the Lions only because they are juiced up over their win, and I think that they'll steamroll the Buccaneers. So if you're catching us, you've got a dozen different ways to do so. We're live streaming on Twitter. We're live streaming on YouTube. We're all over Twitch right now. But the best place to catch us are the phone lines. We got Alan and San Mateo, followed by Buck and San Mateo. San Mateo's coming in hot from the 650. Alan, who is the biggest threat in your mind to the San Francisco 49ers?
Yes, sir. Let me just say real quick, this is the first time I've ever called into a sports show.
Let's go.
And the reason I'm calling in is because of that word, threat. There is no threat.
Okay.
There is no threat.
No threat.
Purdy's rolling through everything. He's rolling through everything. He's been through everything he needs to be through, which is like those 3 games that he lost. He's already learned what he needs to learn, and that's it. He's about to show what he's been all about the whole time, and that's it. That's it. There is no threat.
There we go,
That's
Alan.
what got me calling in. That's what got me calling in is the word threat. There is no threat.
Hey,
That's the wrong word.
I love it, Alan.
That's
you know
the
what?
wrong word.
Thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it. And I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with Alan. If there were no threat, the 49ers would be in the Super Bowl. Anytime you step on the field, there's a threat that you're going to lose. They're not 99% favorites to get this victory. They're not, 3 touchdown favorites. Yeah, what are they? 9.5 or 7.5, something like that, something in between. Forget what Vegas says. All I know is that playoff football is different. And the Green Bay Packers are juiced up over their win over the Dallas Cowboys. They showed something. They showed that their offense could move the football. That's inherently a threat. The Detroit Lions have had a great season, recognizing their potential. They're well coached, inherently a threat. Do I think that Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a threat to the San Francisco 49ers? I'd say 9 times out of 10, the 49ers probably win that football game, but there's the threat that they could lose. So the threat is still legit. We're going out to Buck in San Mateo. Buck in San Mateo, you're on KNBR. Who is the biggest threat, Buck? And by the way, great to have you back on the airwaves.
Great to talk to you again, Kerry. 2 nights in a row. I got a simple answer and a more complicated answer for you.
Let's hear the simple one.
Is look at someone like a Matt LaFleur and the Green Bay Packers, right? They know the system. If anyone knows how to stop this offense, you would think it would be LaFleur, right? They practice against it. You think they'd have a formula. But there's something that happens in playoff football. We've seen this with Kyle Shanahan in the past. So my complicated answer is Kyle Shanahan going to make the right calls in the big moment?
Yeah. Is he the biggest threat to himself? That's kind of what you're saying there, Buck.
Yeah. You ever heard that song, My Own Worst Enemy?
My Own Worst Enemy. Let me know who it's by there, Buck.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look that one up. But, yeah, Kyle Shanahan, he might – that's the one guy I'm worried about. Is he going to see some he's going to have some sleepless nights thinking about this. So that's my real biggest threat for the 49ers is Kyle Shanahan.
There we go. I appreciate the take. And, Buck, before we let you go, you might be the first 2-time caller of the new SportsPhone era. You've called in back-to-back nights in the 6 o'clock hour. Call in tomorrow night. Call in Friday. Yeah. Let's keep hearing it.
Thank you so much for taking our call. You really fire up the crowd. Look, the board's lit up. We're thankful for you, Kerry.
There we go. Buck in San Mateo, my guy down there driving home on 280. We have some great calls right now. Some great comments on the YouTube channel as well. Naomi chiming in that she remembers all 5 Super Bowls that the 49ers won. 5 years old for the first one, but she does remember it because of her father's excitement. This is what I think is so cool about when the 49ers get to the playoffs. You have generations of fans reconnecting with family members, with friends, with the people who passed down their love of a franchise to the next generation. I think that this is when those connections that you have with family who, you spent Sundays in front of the TV with, or you spent Sundays at Candlestick Park with, and then at Levi Stadium with, this is when those bonds become even stronger. It's the playoffs. It's when you make memories. And these are the games that define how you think about this franchise, what you'll remember about the Kyle Shanahan era. It's not going to be, the nice road win that they get in week 4 of the season when they really need one to solidify themselves atop the NFC West each year. That's not it. It's the postseason. It's the playoffs. It's the big games. You remember the defining players, the defining moments. 49ers have an opportunity this weekend against Green Bay Packers to help fans build more memories. And that's what I love about this situation. 808 KNBR is the number. Dial in. We will get you on who is the biggest threat to the San Francisco 49ers. We got Jay on the line in your garage. Jay, what's going on this evening?
Just organization in the garage. What do you do?
There we go, Jay. Sounds like the garage might be a threat to you right now.
It's a thing. It's definitely a thing. I mean, a woman loves her area clean, and I love my area clean. Anyway,
I get it. Let's hear it.
The number one threat to the Niners, and that's what I love about this team. All right, I know I saw all 5 Super Bowl teams, and I still think 98 team was fully on its way, but it didn't happen. Anyway, the biggest threat is the next opponent, and that's what I love about this team is that they don't get ahead of themselves.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen a team like this. I do fear the Ravens, but on a neutral field, who's hot, who's not. But the number one threat to this team, and I love their mindset, they're just like the next opponent.
Yeah.
And that's how I see it. And that's what I love about this team.
Yeah, well said. And I think mentality says a lot, and the 49ers have always been that just next up. So thank you for the call, Jay. I think that's much needed perspective at this time. We're going to keep the phone lines rolling here. We're going to take one more before we head to a commercial break. We're going out to Alex in San Jose. Alex in San Jose, who is the biggest threat to the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC right now? Alex, let's hear your thoughts.
Well, when I called in, I said the Buffalo Bills. That's not the NFC. But
still a good threat.
Yeah, I said the Buffalo Bills because, if it is February 11th, that means that the Bills have won 8 straight, and unless Houston upsets Baltimore, it's probably likely that they win in. Well, they beat the Chiefs, and then they go and beat Baltimore, so they'll probably be pretty hot. But I wanted to pick something like that because I hear a lot of people picking, themselves. The 49ers are the ones that control, are their biggest, object. But I think it has to be. I wanted to pick an opponent to make it,
I like that call. You're answering the question the way it was intended to be answered. You seem like a man of integrity out there, Alex.
Yeah, and when I think about it, I'm kind of like, I don't know if it's the Bills because they're going to have to go on the road. And I feel like, and they got pretty beat up last game. I saw that I don't know if Douglas is still out and all these guys, they're getting banged up. So by the time if they make the Super Bowl and the Niners meet them there, I think they'll probably be more banged up. It's not like they're going to get, healthier. Yeah. So in the Niners, they're going to have all the rest in the world if they get there. Obviously, they have this bye. They're not going to leave Santa Clara. And, Las Vegas is right there. So they're going to be rested. And it's just going to be injuries to a guy like Trent Williams or Christian McCaffrey or just someone huge on this team that'll kind of just derail it. But, yeah, I think Buffalo, just Josh Allen is generational quarterback. And, he poses kind of a threat because the 49ers aren't, historically aren't great against mobile quarterbacks. And he is kind of just like that mobile guy where he also, has the threat to run, has a cannon arm, and you can't bring him down lightly. So I like the Bills.
I like it. Appreciate the call, Alex. The phone line is still lit up, folks. We will get back to you on the other side of the break. A few texts that I want to throw out there. We got one person, I think it's 530 chiming in. The number one threat to the 49ers is Jake Moody's leg right now. A little harsh, but hey, I understand it. I do. We got 415 saying that the Niners go as far as Trent Williams stays healthy. Totally understand that one. Obviously, the entire complexion of the 49ers offense changes when Trent Williams is not healthy. We got the 949 texting in. The biggest threat is the Niners defensive backs' eye discipline against a mobile quarterback. I love this. This is someone who knows ball. Eye discipline against mobile quarterbacks has always been their Achilles heel, and I hope it doesn't rear its head Saturday on a sloppy and wet field. Great text there from the 949. We got a few more people chiming in on the YouTube channel. 49ers will be fine as long as they don't beat themselves from David. Ray saying it's the Lions offensive line. Interesting how they can neutralize 49ers defensive line. Would love to hear more about that, so chime in more on YouTube. Folks, we are rolling toward the 7 o'clock hour. Sports Phone is the show. We are back. Live and local every weeknight on the Leader. No Dubs OT tonight. Of course, Dubs game canceled. We'll get into more of that and the tragic situation later on this evening. On the other side, we will talk about this 49ers team, the biggest threats, and your confidence level on a scale of 1 to 10 in the 49ers reaching the Super Bowl. 10. The 49ers are getting there. There's nothing that stands in their way. 1, you're very worried about the outcome against the Green Bay Packers on Saturday. Where is your confidence level on that 1 to 10 scale? Would love to hear it. Dial us. 808 KNBR is the number. Sports Phone. It's your show. Kerry Crowley. I'm just the game manager here, making sure that everything goes off without a hitch. You're listening to KNBR 104.5, 680, the Sports Leader.
KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.
Tim Ryan joined Papa and Lund for a full hour, the football hour, bro. And they broke down the 49ers and Packers matchup for this weekend. Check out the podcast. It's trending now on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
Speak your mind on the sports leader. SportsPhone KNBR keeps coming at you. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the sports leader.
Wide stretch run to Mostert, gets the edge left, cuts back inside. Raheem Mostert has 4 rushing touchdowns and the most yards rushing in a playoff game in 49er history. Oh, by the way, touchdown San Francisco!
Feels great, baby!
Yeah, the 49ers have some pretty good history of late against the Green Bay Packers. Raheem Mostert, 4 touchdowns. How about Jordan Willis blocking a punt, Talanoa Hufanga scoop and score? We'll play all the hits tonight. My man Greg Silver on the board. Raph going to join us in a few moments. Running around trying to get to every call this evening. Who is the biggest threat to the San Francisco 49ers? In their quest to reach the Super Bowl, you got to pick an NFC team or something that could trip up the 49ers. Kerry Crowley hanging with you until 9 o'clock. And we're opening a new question right now. Scale of 1 to 10, what's your confidence level that the 49ers reach the Super Bowl? 10, nothing can stop this team. No weather, no Jordan Love, no Jared Goff, no Baker Mayfield. Nothing can stop this team. You're at a 10. Or 1, you're extremely concerned about Saturday's game. You, in fact, think that the 49ers might lose to the Green Bay Packers. I doubt many of you are out there. But if you are, 808 KNBR is the number we will put you through. My man Sergio has been waiting. Sergio in traffic. You're on KNBR. Sergio, who's the biggest threat?
Hey, Gary. How's it going, brother?
Doing well. You called last night, right?
Yeah. I guess at the end, you couldn't take me in, but that's cool, man.
All good. Hey, I'm glad to have you back. How are you?
I'm glad to be back. And before I get to my answer, I want to say glad to have you back, and thank you to whoever at KNBR decided to bring back KNBR 68. I think I can speak on behalf of a lot of, Niner Giants fans.
Yeah,
or
love
KNBR
it.
fans.
Love it.
So, it sucked to be in the garage, listen to kind of reapers or whatever, but I'm used to doing stuff in there and, listen to KNBR all my life. I'm 64, so I grew up in the 80s.
Yep.
So I got to see every, I know exactly where I was when the Niners won their first Super Bowl. I know exactly this. I can tell you right now, but that's, Anyways, you know what? It could be anything, but I'm going to say right now, I'm going to change it to the Packers because that's the team in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Niners, injuries also, if the Niners play their game, without any injuries, we can sweep the whole freaking table.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I'm not feeling confident like I was back in the 80s with the Montana,
Yeah, a little different.
And we're talking about all this, Kerry. I get a little nervous because, that's just the way I am. But, gosh, man, what is my thought here? What the heck was I going to say?
Hey, it's all good, Sergio.
I got it. So what I was going to say is, talking about all this, I get nervous, but then I start to think about Devo, you, and Purdy, and everybody, and I think about the way they've been playing, you know what? Then my confidence level goes back up again. So
yeah, well said. I think you speak for a lot of 49ers fans, Sergio. Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate your time this evening. And again, great to have people calling in 2 nights in a row. SportsPhone's back live and local until 9 o'clock. Kerry Crowley, your host this evening and this week, but we'll have a rotation of hosts. The question right now, who is the biggest threat to the San Francisco 49ers? And scale of 1 to 10, what's your confidence level that this team will reach the Super Bowl? We're headed out to Don in Oakland. Don in Oakland, you're on SportsPhone. Don, who's the biggest threat in your mind?
Hey, Gary, thanks for the call. I actually think the Lions are.
Okay.
And I remember, I've been watching more of the Lions this year than I actually have the Niners from like an analysis perspective. Their season started at the end of the 2022 season when they went into the Green Bay and beat Rodgers, right, on the last game to keep them out of the playoffs, allow Seattle to sneak into the last wild card. So that's step 1. Step 2 for them, opening night, going into Kansas City again. Well, okay, it's going to, the Cinderella story is going to end on this. What do? They beat Mahomes opening night 17-14.
Yep.
So, okay, now it's the Rams. All right, so now here you got the Super Genius McVay. The Rams are hot. This is where it falls apart for them. What do? They win a solid game, red zone execution, way better than the Rams, win 27-23. They've done the right thing when the pressure's been on all the time against, air quotes, superior opponents. And that's what worries me. If they come in and can execute flawlessly, they have more than a puncher's chance of beating the Niners.
Yeah, Don, I got to say, that was one of my favorite calls this evening. That analysis was excellent. It's clear you've watched the Lions all season. You know, Greg was talking about this earlier tonight. Thank you for the call. He was talking about this earlier tonight about how the Lions really started this run last season. And that mentality that Dan Campbell brings about not being scared, they might be the lone team in the NFC that isn't scared of the San Francisco 49ers. I think the Green Bay Packers, there are still players who know the recent history between these two teams in the postseason. Matt LaFleur certainly knows the recent history between these two teams in the postseason. 49ers beat up on the Packers of late. That's just what they do. This 49ers team is rested. It's healthy. It has no excuses. And I don't think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can come into Levi's Stadium and win. I know that defense was impressive against the Eagles, but to me, they're third on that list of threats right now. We're going out to Aaron in Fairfield. Aaron in Fairfield, you're on SportsPhone. Aaron, who's the biggest threat?
Yo, how's it going, Gary?
Great tonight. How's it going with you?
Good. Just getting off work.
Love it. Who's the biggest threat in your mind, Aaron?
I think the biggest threat is Green Bay, only because they can probably score the most points on us. We own Goff, really. So I don't think the Lions are a big threat at all. Also, the 49ers are 10-1 when Christian McCaffrey runs for 75-plus yards or more. That's one thing. And the defense, our defense has the most picks in the league right now.
Yep.
So I'm not really worried about any of these teams right now.
Yeah, well said. And I think that the point you bring up, Aaron, thank you for the call, is a good one. Jordan Love, we talked about this earlier tonight. When he turns the ball over, the Packers lose. When Jordan Love has good ball security and the Packers score, or they simply end drives with a punt or a turnover on downs, they win those games. 49ers defense, their secondary has to step up. It's on Mooney Ward. It's on Tashawn Gibson. It's on whoever the 49ers start at that second safety position, whether it be Jair Brown or Logan Ryan. Of course, Diamador Lenore has taken huge steps forward. I do wonder about that nickel corner position, Ambry Thomas, how he holds up, because there's been great moments for Ambry Thomas. There's also been moments where the 49ers have not been so solid at the nickel corner position throughout this 2023 season, and you hope that a mobile quarterback like Jordan Love doesn't expose this 49ers team in that scenario. Again, still believe that the 49ers should be heavy favorites, are heavy favorites, have every reason to rack up a double-digit victory on Saturday at Levi's Stadium, but it is important to consider the threats that this 49ers team faces. We're going out to Dre. Dre, you're on SportsPhone. What's on your mind this evening, Dre?
Mr. Crowley, what went on in your head?
What's going on? How are you?
I'm doing good.
Love the reference.
Hey, thank you. I'm an old-time 49ers fan, so, I've seen the Niners lose when they had the best record in '87 to the Vikings. I remember the Niners losing when they had the best record against Green Bay in the '95 season.
Mm-hmm.
And I caught that little radio clip of Mike Tremora talking about, giving a late hit on Purdy.
The most played clip, the most ridiculous clip you'll hear all day. Yeah, ridiculous.
Yeah. But all I got to say is, I'm a realist. You got to take one game at a time. I can't just go out there and say who's going to be most threatening. Right now, it's Green Bay.
Yeah.
You play Green Bay this weekend. So, I think the Lions are the better of the two, but then again, Green Bay whipped them up pretty good on Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
But they're both not playing the same football. They're different teams right now. But come this Saturday, the biggest threat in front of the 49ers is Green Bay, and like somebody else called and said, the Niners themselves. But I do think the Niners have the better team. If they play Niner ball, Purdy don't turn it over.
Yep.
And like you mentioned earlier, give the ball to McCaffrey. And like Bosa said this week, run the ball, stop the run. I see the Niners winning by double digits.
I love it. Dre. Keep calling in. Thank you so much. Great to hear Dre's voice back on KNBR. So many callers who've dialed in the last two nights. I've heard them from the past when I've done, Giants post-game shows here, when I've done 49ers playoff shows. We used to have those regularly on the weekends here at KNBR, and we're bringing back SportsPhone. This is going to be fun. SportsPhone has a special place in my heart. I remember dialing into KNBR on my way home from Giants games back when I was, 8 years old, calling in about the 2002 season. Absolutely loved it. This show has been so special to so many people. It's launched the careers of so many people, and I really want this to launch the next era of Bay Area sports radio in that I'm just shepherding this show along. For this week, you're going to hear a rotation of hosts. JD's going to join me tonight. John Dickinson will join me from 8 to 9 talking 49ers, talking Dubs. But the most important thing is that we get your calls on the air. We get your opinions on the air, your texts, your YouTube comments, your comments on Twitch, which I promise I will learn how to work at some point this week. Do want to remind you that KNBR Sports Phone is presented by Industrial Metal Supply, online at industrialmetalsupply.com. It's metal made easy. I see you on the phone line, Brett. We'll get to you in just a moment. We got a good text coming in here from the 480. Biggest fear for the 49ers right now, the play calling of Steve Wilks, 49ers defensive coordinator, especially the run defense or lack thereof. Good to hear. That was Mike and Eugene, actually. Mike and Eugene signing off on the text, so appreciate that as well. Brett in Walnut Creek. Brett, you're in Walnut Creek. You're on Sports Phone. Brett, what's going on this evening?
Terry, so great to hear you. Sports Phone. It's so great for everyone to be back and be able to comment, especially this week. How exciting is this?
Yeah, this is the best.
Playoffs, Niners at home. The biggest threat, and I think it might have been mentioned, probably has, is the 49ers. Mm-hmm. And the reality is this. We all know they're better. They have more talent. They have better coaching. And importantly, more than any other sport of the big three, the big four, is rest in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And you get a rest, you get to prepare, you give Kyle Shanahan an extra week to prepare for a team that, the Green Bay offense, the offense they run? The Niners offense.
Yes.
You know who the Niners D plays every day in practice? The Niners offense. They play against a better version of Green Bay every single day. And the reality is they're the better team. Mm-hmm. So unless they shoot themselves in the foot, they're going to win the game. They should win the game. They're more talented. They're more rested. They're getting players back. Their run D is key. Obviously, getting Eric Armstead back, I think, is huge. Getting the middle of the line plugged up. Don't let Aaron Jones beat you, because he shouldn't. And you know what? I love Jordan Love. I think he's a great, great young talent. But we've faced better Packer quarterbacks than Jordan Love in the past.
Yeah.
And I think we did pretty well against them. So the biggest threat is the Niners. And if they execute, as I think they will and they should, I'm thinking it's probably about 34-10.
Brett, the only thing that I can add to what you just said, it was all excellent. It was all eloquent. You got to come in here and sit down for one of these shows sometime. You've got the perfect sports talk radio voice. I love it.
Well, it's because I don't look good on TV, Terry.
There we go. Thank you so much, Brett in Walnut Creek. Oh, that was fun. So, Sports Phone, we got someone chiming in on the text line, 415. It's great to have Sports Phone back, but Twitch, really? It's called Sports Phone. Just call in. And yes, if you're hanging out in the YouTube chat, if you're hanging out on Twitch, please do dial us up. 808-KNBR is the number. 808-KNBR on the text line as well. We want to hear from you. We want to hear from you, not just this week, but every weeknight from 6 to 9 here on KNBR. It's going to be incredibly fun as we go through this NFL postseason, as we get through this Warriors season toward the trade deadline, and then, of course, the march toward the 2024 Giants season that, let's be honest, they've got to make things a whole lot more interesting this offseason for people to really be calling in. If those are going to be positive calls, let's be honest about that. But this is great. It's great to have all of you guys back. I hear so many familiar voices on the airwaves this evening. This is so much fun, and all I got to say is on the other side, scale of 1 to 10. 1, the 49ers are going to have significant difficulties against Green Bay Packers. 10, 49ers going to roll straight through and make an appearance on February 11th at the Super Bowl. What is your confidence level in this 49ers team in getting through the next two games in the NFC in this postseason? Your calls on the other side, your texts on the other side. Sports Phone is back here listening. KNBR 104.5, 680, the sports leader.
Well, it's because I don't look good on TV, Terry.
Giants fans, this is your hub to have your voice heard. SportsPhone KNBR. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Probably not turning it over. And when you don't turn it over, no matter what happens, you got a chance to win in every game. The fact they've only had one pick in 10 games is unbelievable. And when you start getting a running game going with that, with a real good defense too, doesn't surprise me at all.
Talking about the biggest threats to the San Francisco 49ers in their quest to reach the Super Bowl here on SportsPhone KNBR. That was 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan discussing what this Green Bay Packers offense has done so well. Jordan Love has limited turnovers. Aaron Jones has got the running game going. And look, I don't think they have the most explosive group of wide receivers, but you watch this team against the Dallas Cowboys, which of course is a boomer bust defense, and the 49ers exposed them as frauds a few times over the last few seasons. And you can't help but be impressed. You can't help but take this 7 seed a little bit more seriously than I think a lot of people did coming into this postseason. The show is SportsPhone KNBR. 808 KNBR is the number. Who is the biggest threat to the San Francisco 49ers? And on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being you're very concerned about the 49ers and 10 being smooth sailing to the Super Bowl, where do you fall in your confidence level for this week? Dial us in. 808 KNBR is the number. One more time. 916 chiming in. I'm at a 6 in terms of San Francisco reaching the Super Bowl. The threat is the 49ers' tendency to let teams hang around in the first half with a few expectations like the Dallas game. One of these days, an opponent will gain confidence as a result of that, and the 49ers will have a dogfight for all 4 quarters, and in that scenario, anything can happen. Good text from the 916. We're going out to Frankie in Visalia. Frankie in Visalia, you're on SportsPhone. Frankie, what's on your mind this evening?
Yeah, man. Basically, I just want to say that, the 49ers are the best team in football. I've been saying that all season long. And basically, we're not the Dallas Cowboys. We have the best defense, the best defensive line in the game, and Chase Young, Bosa, on and on. Then we got Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Gibson. And our offense, we're explosive on that area. We got Debo, Trent. We got Christian McCaffrey. We got all these weapons. And the only way the Niners will lose this game is they shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I think a lot of callers have agreed with that sentiment. Frank, if you had to pick, though, of the Packers, the Lions, and the Bucs, which is the most dangerous team to the 49ers to play en route to the Super Bowl?
A lot of people think I'm crazy for this one, but I think it's the Detroit Lions.
Okay. I'll hear that. Why is that?
Because the reason why is because the Lions, they have not been in the playoffs since 1993. And so, they're a really, really hungry football team.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. And you watched them dismantle the Rams this weekend, and yeah, it's well said. So, Frankie from Visalia, appreciate the phone call. And look, folks, this is SportsPhone KNBR. This is the Bay Area show. We want your calls from all over the Bay, all over Northern California. And with the spread of technology, you can now watch us on YouTube. You can watch us on Twitch. You can call in from all over the world. We had a caller in New York. We had a caller in New Jersey last night. We got Dan in Arizona dialing us up all the time. We got Frankie in Visalia, which is a reminder that SportsPhone KNBR, from Australia to Visalia, we have you covered, folks. Your 49ers takes all night long. Big question right now in my mind as I look at this Saturday's game. Are the 49ers an unstoppable force? And the road is now clear with the Cowboys being eliminated, with the Eagles being eliminated. Are the 49ers just going to be an unstoppable force en route to the Super Bowl? Or are the Green Bay Packers a Cinderella? We see this in baseball all the time with teams that have the extended layoff. And I don't like to cross sports with different metaphors because I think that it's very difficult to compare an MLB team to an NFL team. Completely different sport, completely different schedule, completely different postseason setup. But we saw it this year. Dodgers have the long layoff. D-backs come in, 84 wins. They win the wild card series. They get hot. They take down the Dodgers. They reach the World Series. 84 wins. I don't think anyone looked in the regular season so the D-backs would have been a threat to the Dodgers. But it happens. It happens in the NFL postseason too. A team that was a 5, a 6, or a 7 seed, they advance. And all of a sudden, you get one road win under your belt, and you start to get hot. You start to get comfortable. You start to get confident. And I think that the Packers, who are the youngest team in the NFL, look, a lot of us might look at them and say, yeah, they'll be scared of the situation. They'll be daunted by the circumstances. But it's also so young, this Packers team, that it might not know any better. These players, Jordan Love, may not know any better. they may come into Levi Stadium and say, hey, we just dismantled the Dallas Cowboys. Who are the 49ers to stand in our way? And look, I don't think that will happen. I think a well-rested 49ers team will take care of business, but it's what makes the NFL so compelling on a weekly basis. It's why we watch. It's why every year, no matter what, if your team picks first in the draft or if you don't have a first-round draft pick, you still get fired up over the new acquisitions, the way your team will look different. And in the Kyle Shanahan era, this team has evolved. Brock Purdy's the quarterback now. It's probably the most confident all of us have felt in the Shanahan era about a quarterback. Christian McCaffrey's the running back. Certainly the most confident we've ever felt about a running back. You look at the way this 49ers team has built its defensive line. Nick Bosa, Chase Young on the edge, Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave. I mean, you're talking about elite players all over the field. This 49ers team has continued to add each offseason, and that's why so many of us think that, with an extraordinarily level of confidence, this 49ers team should roll into Allegiant Stadium on February 11th. And we'll get to their potential opponent if they get past the Packers and they get past the Lions or the Bucs in the NFC title game. And I think that those teams that they could play from the AFC would present a very difficult matchup. We already know the Ravens would. I think the Bills would be rolling. The Chiefs are tough. And who doesn't love the story that the Houston Texans and DeMeco Ryans put together this year with rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud? But every 49ers fan has a lot of confidence right now, and for good reason. 808 KNBR is the number. Dial in. Mark in Santa Rosa. Mark in Santa Rosa, you're on SportsPhone. What's on your mind this evening, Mark?
Hey, I just wanted to say thanks for taking the call. Yeah, I think the Niners have the best equipped team, more than 12 and more than 19, to win it all, and we just have to get past the Packers. The Packers are playing with house money. Yep. They have nothing to lose. They've already beaten the Cowboys, and it's a mentality. They said, we're going to play smash mouth. We're going to run the ball at you. On, I think ESPN, Alex Smith said, if the Packers can run the ball, they can win this game, and they did beat up the Cowboys. And so I think our weakness is probably that inside run defense game. There's not a lot of weaknesses, but that's one of them. And then my buddy at work, I work at the VA in Santa Rosa. Shout out to all my veterans.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out.
And anyway, my buddy, he's a Packers guy, and I'm like, talking, and he's like, if the Packers can put pressure on Purdy and get him rattled early, kind of like a lot of quarterbacks, you knock him around, you get him rattled early, that might be the best way for the Packers to kind of get this game going. But the Niners also have to run the ball. They can't get too cute, can't overthink it. The coach just can't go to the passing game, like stick to that running game. What's the record when they run the ball 35 or more times?
Yeah, I think they pretty much always win,
Yeah, so that's pretty much what I wanted to say. And, go Niners.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the call, Mark, and shout out to the VA. Shout out to you and all the people doing good work up there, taking care of our veterans. Thank you so much for the work you do. Thank you so much to all the good people up there. So, good comment on the YouTube stream right now. Alex chiming in saying that with the Packers' young defense, maybe some false keys in the Shanahan script, one of the things that I always feel that Kyle Shanahan does well, and look, you can levy some heavy criticisms against the way that Kyle Shanahan coaches when playing with a huge lead in the playoffs. Obviously, we know the history, 28-3. We know the history with Patrick Mahomes. It's not history that a lot of people want to relive, but one of the things I think he always does well is come out with a great script, and he's someone who understands what the other defense is trying to do and how he can counter that defense. And remember, this is a Green Bay Packers team that very nearly let go of its defensive coordinator, Joe Barry, earlier this season. I mean, there were all sorts of complaints in Green Bay about the fact that the Packers just simply couldn't stop the run. And what do the 49ers do well compared to pretty much every team in the league? They run the ball better than almost everyone. The Baltimore Ravens, maybe the one team you can say, yeah, they've got the 49ers edge in the run game. But this is a 49ers team that should ground and pound on Saturday against this Green Bay Packers team. This is a 49ers team that should be feeding Christian McCaffrey the ball early, often, and then throughout the second half to put this game on ice. Can the 49ers gain an early lead and then put this Green Bay Packers team away? Because I know I speak for a lot of people here in saying it hasn't been that fun to watch the 49ers try to come from behind in the Shanahan era. It's not something that they do particularly well. It's not something that puts a lot of people at ease. Kyle Shanahan teams usually gain an early lead. That's why their record's so good. And then they usually put teams away. But this is a Green Bay team that scored early against the Dallas Cowboys. They took the ball right down the field. Then they took a commanding lead. They took the Cowboys right out of that game. 49ers have to control time of possession early. They have to show this Green Bay team that their strength, the run game, is Green Bay's biggest weakness, stopping the run. Caleb in Santa Cruz. Caleb in Santa Cruz, you're on SportsPhone. What's on your mind this evening, Caleb?
You know, I'm right on board. I'm right on board with you. I think the Niners are going to expose the Green Bay Packers this weekend. They've been ranked 28th in run defense this year. Teams on average ran 128 yards per game against them. Although in the last 3 games, they've only allowed 88 yards per game. I think that's going to be significantly different when you have Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell running down your throat with our offensive line. I just don't see the Packers being able to hold up a tough run game. They didn't have that coming against them with the Cowboys. The Cowboys are very pass-heavy, and for that reason, they were exposed. And I don't see the Niners running into that issue with how well-rounded we are on offense and how much we're jiving right now, you know. I think the Packers are a great team, no discredit to them at all. I think they're going to be awesome for many years to come, but I just don't see the Niners giving it up to a team like this.
Yeah, well said, Caleb. And here's the thing. You said that I think the Packers are going to be really good for years to come. Couldn't agree more with that, but the 49ers are ready right now. I think we look at this roster, you know, I know, pretty much everyone listening knows, it's a veteran roster that's been on the cusp of greatness, and now it's time to get the job done. What is your confidence level on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being, I'm very worried about the Green Bay Packers, 10 being smooth sailing to the Super Bowl. How do you feel headed into the rest of the NFC playoffs?
I feel great. I feel like, you know, the Lions are going to be a tough team to beat. I think they're a little more well-rounded. As I said, I think that's what the Packers lack.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the Cowboys lacked against the Packers. But I think I'm going to give you an 8.
Okay.
The reason I say 8 is, like you said, coming from behind isn't always easy. We need to start out these games strong in order to be sure winners in these games. I don't want to come from behind. I just don't see, you know, having a young quarterback still. I think Brock Purdy's great. He's battle-tested, but he had a tough game, you know, not long ago. And if a team exposed him early and kind of weakened his confidence, it could really hurt in the playoffs. You know, these atmospheres are brutal. Yeah. Whether you're at home or not, it's a must-win game, and I think a lot of pressure, you know, gets into these guys' heads.
Absolutely. Caleb, thank you so much for the phone call. Please do dial back. Some great takes from Caleb in Santa Cruz. Had some great callers the last 2 nights. I think overall we've now topped 50 callers in the first 2 nights of SportsPhone KNBR's return to the airwaves. Kerry Crowley, your host this evening, your host for the week. But you'll hear a variety of different voices on this show. We're all trying to accomplish the same mission, and that is get as many voices on the air as possible. That is get people giving their takes on Bay Area sports. Said this last night, I'll say it again tonight. We will celebrate the biggest wins. We will grieve the toughest losses here on SportsPhone. We will hold powerful figures in Bay Area sports to account. We will demand excellence from these teams, the 49ers, the Giants, the Warriors. That is the point of a show like this. You put so much into rooting for these teams. You spend your hard-earned money supporting the 49ers, the Giants, the Warriors. Christmas gifts are tickets to a ball game. You spend your Sundays watching games at home. You spend your weeknights tuned in on KNBR to the Giants. It's about time that you have an opportunity to sound off every evening, live and local here on KNBR. We're bringing it back. 808 KNBR is the number. Your thoughts on the other side. Let's keep this conversation rolling. 49ers, what is your confidence level in them? 1 through 10 en route to a Super Bowl. Kerry Crowley hanging with you until 9 o'clock. KNBR 104.5, 680, the sports leader. That their strength, the run game, is Green Bay's biggest weakness, stopping the run.
Don't you wish your life came with a warning app?
Stop. That dog does not want to be petted.
Just a little heads up before something bad happens.
Move your coffee cup away from your computer.
Oh, no.
So you can have more control.
Stop. You're texting your boss by mistake.
Uh-oh. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes like managing your weight, getting active, stopping smoking, and eating healthier, you can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. It's easy to learn your risk. Take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Warning. The cap is loose on that ketchup.
Ugh. Don't wait. You have the power to change the outcome. Visit doihaveprediabetes.org today. That's doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
This is where we feed the faithful. SportsPhone KNBR. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the Sports Leader.
808 KNBR is the number. SportsPhone is back. I am your host this evening and this week, Kerry Crowley, but you'll hear a rotation of voices in this time slot. The number one objective, get your voices, the takes of Bay Area sports fans on the air. One of my favorite textures already, 408 chiming in. Let's hope we don't have to grieve any of those big losses anytime soon. Yeah, I think that's well said. I think that a lot of folks would like to spend the next 3 weeks or so on these airways predicting 49ers victories, discussing 49ers wins, and talking about a run to the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. Phone lines are wide open right now. I see Be Nice in Stockton on the line, but we're going to start things off with Danny in Sonoma. Danny in Sonoma, you're on SportsPhone. What's on your mind this evening, Danny?
Howdy, Kerry. How you doing?
Oh, doing well. Couldn't be better. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for taking the call.
Yeah.
So, what would you like to talk about?
I think it's what would you like to talk about? What's your confidence level in the 49ers getting to a Super Bowl? What's your confidence level in them beating the Green Bay Packers and then winning in the NFC title game against the Detroit Lions or Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Kerry, let me tell you, it's low, okay? I just see McCaffrey putting the ball down a couple of times. I got a bad feeling about this, partner.
Danny, SportsPhone's back, and you're talking about Christian McCaffrey fumbling the football?
Listen, it's just McCaffrey, he's had such a good year, but he's got a couple big knockers, in the way. I see them clacking.
All right. Thank you for the call, Danny. Appreciate your time.
Hold on now. Also,
we got Be Nice in Stockton. You're on KNBR. Be Nice. What's on your mind this evening?
So here's the thing, man. I'm going to go ahead and say outright what you guys are mentioning, but not really saying. It's going to be the carpet's laid out for those guys to get to the Super Bowl against all these other finesse teams in the NFC.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when you reach the Super Bowl, you've got to face either an Andy Reid and a Pat Mahomes, a Lamar Jackson and a Harbaugh.
Yeah.
And the Harbaugh family is just, what they do in football is just disgusting right now. So they're riding a high. You don't want to see Harbaugh. And then you've got a Bills team that's desperate for a Super Bowl with a superstar quarterback over there. So if the Bills get through the AFC, they earned it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just feel like it's going to be another loss.
Do we drop him? We drop Be Nice? Oh, no. Too bad. We lost connection with Be Nice, but I will say he was touching on the subject that I was planning on talking about in the 8 o'clock hour when JD joins me, which is all these teams in the AFC have great quarterbacks and great coaches. You look at the NFC right now, and I think you could make a pretty compelling case that Brock Purdy's the guy. Like, Jared Goff has obviously been to a Super Bowl before. He's done great things in Detroit, winning their first playoff game in 30 years. Jordan Love is ascending right now, has the potential to be a star. Baker Mayfield, look, he's had a good season in Tampa Bay. A lot of people wrote him off, and like Geno Smith said, he didn't write back. But Brock Purdy is the guy right now in the NFC. Kyle Shanahan is the best coach right now in the NFC. You throw this 49ers team in the AFC or against an AFC team, we'll talk about this later on this evening. I think the Harbaugh-Lamar Jackson quarterback-coach combination, it's pretty tough to deal with. Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes, we all know what they're capable of and what they've accomplished together. Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, it's a team on a mission right now, as hot as any team in the NFL. So, yeah, that's a conversation we will have. But right now, I want to keep things focused on the 49ers and the NFC. That's a conversation for a later date. 49ers got to get through the Packers and then through the NFC title game. We're headed out to Mark in Brentwood. Mark in Brentwood, you're on SportsPhone. Mark, how are you this evening?
Hey, good, Kerry. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, appreciate you. What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to give you my predictions, and I think the Niners will do well, and I think that they should get through the NFC. I would say my concern is more this week.
Yeah.
I think it's because we're playing a team much like us. They might be a little bit younger, but they come from the Shanahan school of coaching. They want to run the ball down your throat, right? They want to play good defense. They want to control the ball. So I think that we're a little bit better of a veteran team. Hopefully we prevail, but I would say that I'm a little bit more worried about this week's game than the following week's game.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people would agree with you, Mark. But with that being said, if they get through this Packers team, I think the Lions are really good. And that Bucs defense is tough. It's not a cakewalk, but the 49ers are going to be favorites and heavy favorites no matter what. So is there more pressure on this team, less pressure because of the schedule? How do you see it?
I think if they get through this week, I don't see Detroit as much of a threat, especially because they're on the road. If they were in a dome, I might be a little bit more worried. Detroit's had it rough for 30-plus years, right? They finally won their first playoff game. I think that they're on the right track, but they don't scare me as much.
Okay.
And we beat Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay is a good team. I don't think they're a great team. Again, I worry more about this week, and even then, I'm not ultimately worried. Let's call it concerned.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Mark, appreciate the phone call. Thank you for your time this evening. 808 KNBR is the number. What's your biggest concern right now with the 49ers in their route to reaching the Super Bowl? And again, we'll talk about the AFC teams later on. We got plenty of time to do that. They got to get through this Green Bay Packers team. What could stop them? What could stand in their way? David and Tracy, you're on SportsPhone. David, what's on your mind this evening?
Hey, what's up, Kerry? I just wanted to say, man, over the past couple of years, you being on the Murph and Mac show, now the Murph and Marcus show, you have really good insight, man, and I love what you have to say. You're really good with your words, and I really appreciate all you do. And it's so glad to hear that you're on the time slot for just this week, but you'll be rotating, I'm guessing. That's what you were saying?
Yeah, David, can I send you a Venmo right now? Thank you for all the kind words. Seriously.
No, you're all good, bro.
Let's talk 49ers Packers. What's on your mind with this game?
Yeah, so basically, a lot of people would say I'm a pessimist, but I like to think a little realistic. And, with this game, it's the first time that I really feel confident in a game about winning. I always fear my opponent, but with this Packers team, I just feel like, they're riding the high off of the wild card victory. They're a young team. I feel like it could flame out, but I was just interested to hear maybe some of your notes on what the Packers could do that could disrupt the Niners or give them a hard time in this game, if you don't mind. So
yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you for taking my call, man.
Thanks for dialing in, David, anytime. And like I said, Venmo's on the way. Check your phone right now. What I think this Packers team has the ability to do is get off to a hot start and throw off the 49ers game plan. I think that's probably the greatest concern for Saturday's game is the 49ers haven't historically played well from behind in the Shanahan era. There is going to be the issue of rest versus rust, and a lot of us think that the 49ers will come out rested and that their players will benefit from the bye week and not having to go all out in Week 18 against this Rams team. But again, this Green Bay team is hot. They've won 8 of their last 11 football games. Jordan Love is not turning the ball over right now. I think that if they get off to a 2-score lead, then all of a sudden the panic button sets in. People are pressing it in the stands. 49ers fans will be able to feel that at Levi's Stadium. I think it's absolutely imperative the 49ers score first. If they score first, I think they cruise to a double-digit victory. If Green Bay scores first, then I think you've got reason for concern. And I normally don't put a whole lot of stock in who scores first because it's a 60-minute football game. Kyle Shanahan teams have showed that you don't win the game in the first quarter. Remember back to that Eagles game 49ers played where they dominated so thoroughly? What was it? 42-19 in Philadelphia. The game wasn't close by the end of it. First quarter was ugly. First 2 series on offense for the 49ers were terrible. all of us were saying, oh, this is a repeat of the NFC Championship game, except Brock's on the field. And then it was chunk play after chunk play. And then they took off. But this week, I really feel you take the Packers out of the game early. 808 KNBR is the number. Your thoughts. Jay in Rancho Cucamonga. Jay in Rancho Cucamonga. What's on your mind this evening?
Hey, Kerry, how are you?
Doing well. How's it going?
Good. I'm glad KNBR Sports Phone is back. I'm from San Francisco. I moved down here. I'm a lonely Giants and Cubs fan down here.
It's tough.
However, there are a lot of Niner fans down here.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of front runners in Los Angeles.
Well, also, remember, they didn't have a team for 20 years, so either they became Chargers or Niner fans.
That'll help. That'll help.
Yes. So I don't feel as bad around Niner time. I don't really have any concerns except the weather this Saturday. I know people keep talking. I keep looking at the app for the weather, and and not just the equalizer, but it's not that they can't win in the weather. It's because if it's a sloggy field, then possibly more injuries can come. It's the next game up, and and obviously I know we're not talking about the AFC. I hope they get there, obviously, and I think they will. It's just specifically with Baltimore. I think they can beat Baltimore, but I'm just really more worried about the weather as far as like the great equalizer and the injury that could happen because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Jay. And thank you for the call. Appreciate you representing Bay Area sports fans down in Southern California. No, it's not an easy task, but a little easier at this time of year, as you just mentioned. One more call before we go to break here. JD going to join me right around 8 o'clock or maybe a little bit before that. Mike in Brentwood. Mike in Brentwood, you're on SportsPhone. What's going on this evening? What's on your mind, Mike?
Hey, Kerry, man. It's glad to see you back, man. So glad KNBR brought the show back. I always enjoy you on all the other shows.
Well, thank you, Mike. Appreciate that.
Hey, my big concern, Kerry, I'm a season ticket holder.
Yep.
And yesterday I went on Ticketmaster to look to see, what how many tickets are, were listed on there for the game. Kerry, 60% of the stadium is for sale. And that pisses me off.
Yeah.
As a season ticket holder, our team is right here, man. They're the number 1 seed. They bust their rear ends to get 2 home games. And we're going to have maybe 50% of the place be Green Bay fans because what, a little drizzle? Come on, I mean, Buffalo, you got people that are walking 3 to 4 miles because they can't drive. They're walking in snowstorms to the damn game, and we're selling our tickets because there's a little drizzle. It just pisses me off. I'm just calling them out. Come on, this place should be 95% us.
That's why I'm letting you go here, Mike. I think that you have a very important message. Thank you for the call. And here's what I'll say to Mike. Nick Wagner, great 49ers beat reporter for ESPN, put this out earlier today. He said on Twitter, Packers fans have a well-earned reputation for invading opposing stadiums. But Vivid Seats is projecting that 49ers fans will not allow that to happen Saturday at Levi's Stadium. Their fan forecast, which apparently is an official metric that Vivid Seats uses, would love to have that job, creating the fan forecast, is projecting a 97% Niners home crowd in the NFC divisional round. Average sold price on the secondary market, $482 a ticket. So appreciate the call from Mike in Brentwood. I think he makes a very important point that, yeah, it's disappointing to see all those season ticket holders potentially selling their tickets. But look, I get it. You got to cash in when you can. I'll say this, though. Sounds like they're selling to 49ers fans who are eager to go to a game. And I'll also add this. As someone who's had the good fortune of attending 2 Super Bowls in my lifetime, 2 national championship games in college, there is no better game to attend in all of sports than a home playoff game in football. The Super Bowl is a horrible atmosphere. It's corporate. It's stuffy. It's people in suits. It's people who don't care. The people who pay to go to the divisional round, the championship round at their home stadiums are rewarded when their teams win because there is nothing like it. Whether you went to games at Candlestick Park or you've gone to games at Levi's Stadium, the atmosphere at home playoff games in the NFL is unmatched. And so Nick's tweet gives 49ers fans hope. I know there's always tickets on the secondary market, but look, those tickets are selling for a lot of money. Chances are they're selling to people locally. 808 KNBR is the number. Dial in on the other side. John Dickinson going to join me talking 49ers and Dubs the rest of the way here on SportsZone. I am Kerry Crowley, your host this evening and this week. KNBR 104.5, 680, the sports leader.
Maybe 50% of the place be Green Bay fans because what, a little drizzle?
Dub Nation, dial the digits and dive in. 415-808-KNBR. SportsPhone KNBR continues right here and on the all-new KNBR app.
I think this song came out before Alex Smith was drafted number 1 overall. Remember the name, Fort Minor. Raph on the board, Greg Silver in studio, Kerry Crowley on the mic right now. John Dickinson going to join me at the top of the hour. The show is SportsPhone KNBR, taking your calls, reading your texts. This is your show, Bay Area, Northern California, from Australia to Visalia. It's an interactive show for you. Talking 49ers right now. Your biggest concern heading into this Saturday's matchup against the Green Bay Packers. Patrick in San Jose, you've been patiently waiting on the line. Can't wait to get you on here. Patrick in San Jose, what's on your mind this evening?
Hey, what's going on, Terry? How are you?
Doing well. What's going on?
I'm enjoying your show tonight. Hey, I was just listening to everybody call in. There's kind of a quiet confidence that we have this time of the season as far as the Niners are concerned. We know what we have to do, and we know we're on a mission, and I can't see Green Bay even stopping us. I'm saying like 35-10, Love's never seen any defense like ours, okay? We're going to shut down their run, and I think we're just going to crush them.
Okay. I like the confidence. I like the confidence a lot. No concerns after watching Jordan Love go off against the Cowboys?
I think they peaked out against Dallas. They have another tough road game this week against us, and this is when it ends for them.
There we go. Patrick in San Jose, thank you for the call. Definitely call back. I love the energy. Thank you so much. We're going out to Fairfield. I think this is Sastete in Fairfield.
Hey, what's going on, folks?
What's going on? How are you? What's on your mind this evening?
Man, enjoying this show. It was just some things that caught my ear, right?
Let's hear them.
And, not those commercials y'all just had on before. That's kind of funny though. The ED and Get Your Family Together. That kind of made me chuckle a little bit. But the ticket pricing, it's the crazy part about it. My favorite memory came last year, Purdy's rookie season, where I was able to tell him, just believe. Mm-hmm. And he goes out there and becomes not the number 4 stringer, but the number 1 stringer by the end of the season. And now it's bringing us back to the Super Bowl. Well, potentially the Super Bowl, which I know we're going to make because the Niners going to do their thing.
Yeah. But so no concerns in your mind?
The biggest concern?
Yeah.
My biggest concern is just toughing it out like the homeless that got sleep that may sleep in that Hilton parking lot like I did last year and came to the game on December 24th when we played the Washington. My kids be mad at me. I'll be saying that though. They actually, that's why that commercial made me chuckle because they mad. I'll be saying I'll be homeless. But yeah, when I slept in that hotel parking lot and came to the game that day and had one of the greatest moments. If anybody wants to give away some tickets and buy some of them tickets, invite Fast Feet.
There we go. We will. Hey,
I'll be there in the rain. I'll catch the Amtrak.
Sassy.
Representing.
I'll write down your number right now. If anyone wants to chime in on the text line for tickets with you, 808-KNBR is the number. We'll get in touch with you. Thank you for the phone call. Appreciate your time this evening, folks. 808-KNBR is the number. Your thoughts, the biggest concern facing the 49ers as they square off against the Green Bay Packers on Saturday. I think it's time, Raph, that we bring in our man, John Dickinson. Oh, not quite yet. We're still waiting till till that 8 o'clock hour. But I think one of my biggest concerns that I just, have thought about in recent days is, just touched on it. If the Green Bay Packers get off to this hot start, how does Kyle Shanahan respond? How does Steve Wilks, who has taken some head coach interviews, how does he respond on the defensive side of the ball? If you're thinking about a particular weakness for the 49ers, I think that this week it's their secondary. And it's their secondary because, you look at the safety position, they missed Talanoa Hufanga, who was an all-pro, maybe not playing at that level. Obviously, there were some breakdowns in the passing game, and he was so good as a run filler that those were overlooked last year. But no question, with the ACL injury, the 49ers miss him on the back end. They're going to have to make a tough call between Jair Brown and Logan Ryan. And I think that the nickel corner position is always a challenge for the 49ers, particularly when they go up against a quarterback like Jordan Love, who, look, he maybe not be the most mobile quarterback in the NFL, but he's someone who can extend plays. He's someone who can shift out of the pocket, keep his eyes down the field, which is something that I think he does extraordinarily well. And he is someone who can wreak havoc on this 49ers defense if they don't collapse the pocket, if they don't stay on these Green Bay receivers in coverage. So quick reminder for you folks here on The Leader. This show is KNBR Sports Phone. It's presented by Industrial Metal Supply, online at industrialmetalsupply.com. It's metal made easy. It's time to bring in our man, John Dickinson, here for the next hour. JD, how are you?
What's going on, Kerry? Good to be with you, my man. Just a heck of a day, man. Big things going on with the 49ers and obviously the sad news surrounding the Warriors.
Absolutely, yeah. And you were all over both stories. You were down in Santa Clara. Obviously, your boots on the ground with the Golden State Warriors all the time. And the team was in Salt Lake, and we'll touch on that situation, the tragedy later on this hour. But just before we get into anything, JD, you were down in Santa Clara today in the locker room. Would love your impressions of what you heard from 49ers players and what they were saying.
Yeah, look, I think they know that the task at hand against this Green Bay Packers team. I think they do understand and saw what they did to the Dallas Cowboys and see the level that Jordan Love has really played at over the course of the second half of the season and the level of offense that the Packers have played over the second half of the season. I mean, they've been really as good as any offense going in the NFL. Now, that being said, I think, and all of the talk about the quarterbacks, as there always is in these NFL playoff games and in NFL games in general, I think the 49ers, to a man on the defensive side, believe that stopping the run first and foremost is how they're going to beat the Green Bay Packers. Nothing against Jordan Love and the way that he's performed to this point, down the stretch this season in the game that he had, but stopping Aaron Jones, stopping the Packers' run game, I think is at the top of the list for the 49ers, and they're getting healthier defensively with the return of Eric Armstead, with Javon Hargrave looking good. They are going to be down Cleveland Ferrell, but they've still got Chase Young, obviously, and Nick Bosa. They're rested and fresh, and so I think the onus in this one is on the defense. I think there's points to be had for the offense, but the onus for the 49ers is on the defense to stop the run and try to make the Packers a little bit one-dimensional and put pressure on Jordan Love to have to be the carrier of the Green Bay Packers offense with those young wide receivers. They've done it in some games, but I think there's a belief that if the Niners can get them off script a little bit, they can make life a lot more difficult, and that can help them, flip the game in their favor as the more talented team.
Yeah, I love what you said there about getting them off script, because I think that's something that Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur do about as well as anyone. The Dallas Cowboys have not given up touchdowns on opening drives much this season, but you saw the Green Bay Packers march down the field and score against Dallas. You've seen the 49ers absolutely annihilate this Dallas defense over the last few seasons, and so much of it has to do with Kyle Shanahan and his successful scripts, Matt LaFleur, his successful scripts, the way that these teams open football games. And I don't like to put a lot on whichever team scores early has a huge advantage, but I also think that both teams, like you just said, JD, they want to run the football. They want to run it down the other team's throat, and it's a lot harder to run the football when you're playing from behind.
Yeah, I think the Packers, if they're going to have a shot, they're going to have to score early and get ahead. And we've seen that's really the only time that the 49ers are vulnerable. But the problem is the 49ers have been the best team in the NFL at scoring first and going down on their opening drive, and not only just putting points on the board, putting touchdowns on the board. So they've been able to make teams play from behind against them, and that's where the defense can fly around, the pass rush can get going. Again, you make a team one-dimensional, and then all of a sudden it's Nick Bosa and it's Chase Young and it's Hargrave, and now Eric Armstead's back, and those guys can all wreak havoc on the interior, force a pass, force picks, force some tougher throws, force Jordan Love to be inaccurate. But the Niners, if there has been one vulnerability for them this year, it's been the defense potentially looking a little vulnerable here and there, but it's been playing from behind.
Yeah.
And so I think getting off to a good start for them. Not that they can't come back. I think the Niners can come back on the Packers and win. I don't know that Green Bay can come back on the Niners and win if it were to go the other way where they got down multiple scores quickly.
Yeah, well said. One of the things that I want to do here in this 8 o'clock hour is we're going to touch on Shanahan, we're going to touch on LaFleur, but I think that what stands out to me, JD, about the remaining 8 teams in this NFL postseason field are you look around and pretty much everyone has a great head coach. And I think it's great for 49ers fans today that the Dallas Cowboys come out and say that Mike McCarthy's returning, because I don't think he's one of the elite coaches in the NFL, even though he's got a Super Bowl under his belt. And who knows about the situation in Philadelphia? It sounds like Nick Sirianni will be back, but he clearly lost a lot in losing Shane
Sounds like Sirianni has to prove it. Did you see the wording?
Yeah.
Sirianni, the wording of the report tonight, it was, Sirianni's going to meet with Lurie, the owner, but he's got to come correct with a plan of how things are going to change, and he better have some coordinators that he has, on speed dial basically to come and help take over, because they lost both their coordinators and then went to Matt Patricia on the defensive side, and Sirianni kind of let the thing get away. So I think having better coordinators in place is probably what Philly's thinking. But there was also a part of me that thought, not to get off on a tangent on Philly, but if Sirianni goes into this meeting with the owner and has some of the wrong answers, like maybe Philly decides to change course and go in a different direction and maybe fire Sirianni. We've seen them do it with Peterson in the recent past. That's how Sirianni got the job. And so, I wonder and will, I think, fully believe that Sirianni's healthy after that meeting. But I don't know what the hell, Terry, the Cowboys are doing.
Yeah.
My goodness, that was a stunner.
It's a gift.
That was a stunner.
It's a gift to the rest of the NFC to keep status quo in Dallas. And maybe it's because Jerry Jones has changed things so many times through the years that he believes that continuity will ultimately, win out in Dallas, and that the NFC isn't as strong as the AFC. Mike McCarthy, Dak Prescott can be your combo. Just back to the Eagles real quick. Nick Sirianni can't show up to this meeting with Matt Patricia as his D coordinator and Big Dom as his O coordinator. That's not going to work moving forward in Philly, so they're going to have a plan.
No, but Big Dom, for those in the know, Big Dom has been around a lot longer than Sirianni. Big Dom goes back to – Big Dom is an owner guy.
Yeah.
So Big Dom ain't going anywhere. Big Dom – yeah, Big Dom knows. Well, I don't want to say Big Dom knows where the bodies are buried. Well, he may, because he might have put them there.
Well said. But we go off on this Eagles tangent, this Cowboys tangent, all to say that the 8 teams remaining are very well coached. And I wonder, you look at Andy Reid of the Chiefs, John Harbaugh of the Ravens, the upstart coaches in the NFL right now, Dan Campbell of the Lions, DeMeco Ryans of the Houston Texans. Just a sensational story with what he's done in his first year with C.J. Stroud. I think a lot of 49ers fans have taken on the Texans as their AFC team. Where do you rank Kyle Shanahan and his coaching staff relative to the remaining field right now in this postseason?
I think they're near the top. I would have a difficult time putting them ahead of the guys that have Super Bowls among this group, which, of course, is Andy Reid, who's got a couple of Super Bowls now, and John Harbaugh, who's won a Super Bowl against the 49ers. Actually, both won Super Bowls against the 49ers. Harbaugh back in the era of Jim Harbaugh coaching the Niners. But no, I'd put Andy Reid and John Harbaugh both ahead of Kyle Shanahan. I don't think, looking at the rest of everybody else, from Todd Bowles to Dan Campbell to Matt LaFleur to Sean McDermott and DeMeco Ryans, who's an up-and-comer and a guy that's has there ever been a better first-year head coach and first-year quarterback combination than what they've had with Stroud and with DeMeco in Houston? But no, I think it's almost Andy Reid, Harbaugh, Shanahan, top 3, and then we draw a line, and then we figure out who 4 through 8 are beyond that. But I think Shanahan's a clear-cut 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I would go with Andy Reid 1. He's my 1 because he had the success in Philly. Obviously, didn't win until he had Mahomes, but he's always had good coordinators. He had Eric Bieniemy as an offensive coordinator before, of course, he left. He has Spags on the defensive side of the ball. That defense for Kansas City has been great all season long. And I think that Andy Reid has just kind of figured something out in Kansas City. You don't have to have the best roster when you do have the best quarterback in the whole world in Patrick Mahomes, and obviously figuring it out. We knew Bill Belichick had it figured out when he had Tom Brady. Having the best quarterback in the world makes a massive difference for the outcomes for your franchise. But I think that he's always done something to get something out of the rest of that team besides Patrick Mahomes. And this year it's been their defense in a year where they maybe don't have the same caliber of skill position players. And then John Harbaugh, what he's done on the offensive side of the ball, like Greg Roman was great, and then he leaves last year. Mike McDonald steps in as the offensive coordinator. The Ravens are running the ball, or defensive coordinator, I should say. They've got Todd Monken as the offensive coordinator this year, and they're running the ball better than anyone, including the San Francisco 49ers. We saw them at Levi's Stadium on Christmas night. That Ravens team is incredibly well coached. And yes, they've got premium talent all over the field. They've got Lamar Jackson at the quarterback position, who I can't believe that the offseason that he had where teams could have given up 2-1s to go try and get him, and he stays in Baltimore as that result. But it just seems to me like you said, there's a clear-cut top three, and then I wonder, who's your fourth? Is it D'Amico? Is it Sean McDermott, Matt LaFleur? Who is your fourth?
Yeah, I'd probably go with McDermott at this point, just because the multiple playoff appearances, and they've won divisions, and they've won playoff games, and they've also lost playoff games. But I think McDermott's a really good coach. After that, I'd probably go with LaFleur. LaFleur and/or McDermott. I think LaFleur obviously had Aaron Rodgers for a couple of years, and they've had some bad playoff losses as well. But they were the 1 seed a couple of times, and he basically stepped right in and won 13 games in each of his first 3 seasons. And so I think there's a case to be made for LaFleur. I think there's a case to be made for LaFleur to be even as high as 4th. I mean, I think him and McDermott are 4 or 5. I think D'Amico's done a hell of a job. I'd probably put him 6, only based on the inexperience factor. And then I think Todd Bowles is probably would be my 7. I'd put Dan Campbell 8 of 8. And I think a lot of that, and look, Dan Campbell's done a hell of a job. He may be the coach of the year. And for those in the know, I mean, I kind of had a now infamous series of rants on Dan Campbell that I was wrong about. Like I was really put off. I didn't like the hire. Yeah. I thought it was a kind of a joke, and that opening press conference really put me off with the biting the kneecaps and all that stuff. And, I pretty much had cast him as a meathead that really didn't have a lot of substance. And the reality is there is more to Dan Campbell than that. And he hired some pretty good, especially on the offensive side with Ben Johnson, a hell of an offensive coordinator. And, I always believe that head coaches are either X's and O's guys or culture guys, right? You either have your side of the ball or your specialty. And I think this is true really in all sports. But for the NFL, it's you either have your specialty, right? You're either an offensive coordinator type or you're a defensive coordinator type. And you're either kind of an X's and O's guy that leads in that way, or you are a culture change. Like you're a guy that basically is like I think Mike Tomlin is a culture guy. John Harbaugh is a culture guy, right? He's not really an offensive or a defensive coach, but he's a leader. And I think both of those guys are perfect examples of that. And I think Dan Campbell's proven himself to be a leader and proven himself, even if it's unconventional, even if maybe it was off-putting to some, he's backed it up because that team has improved each of the 3 years that he's been there. I think he's got, especially on the offensive end, the right guys in place there, and I think the culture fit has been really good with his ability to get players to buy in, and then they've had success with the scheme and all of that. I know he's taken a lot of risks. They go for 4th downs. Like he's done a lot of things to really, I think, empower his team and show his team that he has their back, which I think puts him in a great spot with his players. So I'd probably put him still at the bottom, but I think it's a decent group. Like I don't think there's anybody among that group that's basically doing anything where you're going to look and say, "Wow, this guy this guy's just going to cost a team a game due to some buffoonery."
Yeah, it's so clear that to get deep in the postseason, you have to have a great quarterback and a great coach, and that's what all of these teams have right now. Going through that list, Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes, they're the iconic duo of this era right now. John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson. Very easily. You've got the MVP and a Super Bowl winning coach in the past. Kyle Shanahan has found his guy in Brock Purdy. And I want to get back to Kyle Shanahan in a moment because it's something that you just said about X's and O's and culture guys. DeMeco Ryans, in first year in Houston, had more success than any of us could have anticipated. And C.J. Stroud has been better than anyone ever expected, coming into the league as the number 2 overall pick, making the Carolina Panthers look silly for drafting Bryce Young. Sean McDermott has Josh Allen, who is just, he's otherworldly to watch. When you watch Josh Allen, he is a complete physical menace on the field with what he can do with the rocket arm and moving the ball with his feet. Matt LaFleur, X's and O's guys, and he's found his new guy in Jordan Love. Like, they went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. Now Jordan Love is emerging as a guy who could be in Green Bay, it looks like, for the next 10 seasons. And just more stability for that franchise. Matt LaFleur provides a lot of that with the scheme that he runs. Dan Campbell, culture guy you just said, and Jared Goff has proven to be the guy in Detroit. I don't know that I expected the best football of Jared Goff's career to come after his pairing with Sean McVay, but I think that you can make the case that this season is the best that we've seen Jared Goff, and it's been with Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator and Dan Campbell setting the tone in Detroit. And then you've got Todd Bowles, who obviously he's a defensive coach, but he's gotten more out of Baker Mayfield than any of us could have expected. I said earlier tonight, Baker Mayfield is kind of this year's version of Geno Smith, where a lot of people wrote him off, and he didn't write back. Baker Mayfield emerged from the NFC South, and look, I know that team has a good defense that certainly carried them on Monday night against the Eagles, but Baker looked good, and he's looked good at various times this season. And I want to get back to Shanahan here because I, too, rank him third behind Andy Reid and John Harbaugh, but perceived when he was hired as a true X's and O's guy because of the scheme, because of, he was the son of Mike Shanahan. He adopted that Shanahan offense and brought it into the modern era, and it had so much success. And it's obviously had tremendous success here with the San Francisco 49ers. But I think Shanahan, of all the X's and O's coaches in the NFL, might be the best culture guy with that. He might have the best compliment.
No, I think you're right. I think, I'd go back to 2017 when you look at the culture, and you may think, well, JD, what the hell are you talking about? I mean, they started 0-9 at that point. And I remember being in that locker room during that season, during the week as they were losing, yes, a lot of close games, but also it was pretty clear that they had at that point one of the worst rosters in the NFL, and they were trying to infuse it with veteran players that were going to teach younger players how to do things the right way, thus impact culture. But I've never been in a locker room of a team as bad as that team was that was as happy as they were.
Yeah.
Like, and not happy that they stunk and couldn't win. Not like, hey, they were cool with it, 1-2-3 Cancun, but just that they fully believed that there was a bigger purpose at hand and that they were still building something and that they were doing things as an organization and as a football team, as an entity, the right way. And so for them to be 0-9 and not fray and not have anybody looking at Kyle Shanahan squirrely like, what the heck's going on here? This guy doesn't have it. It was actually the opposite. It was, wow, they're in position to win a lot of these games. They're not. The talent isn't there, but they're together. They're a unit. They were playing for each other still, both ways. And then they go out and they get Jimmy Garoppolo on Halloween night in 2017 at the trade deadline, and he ends up winning the final 5 games of the year. So it's very rare that you see a team as bad as the Niners were keep it together to a point where they end up winning the final 5 games of the year. They finished that year 6-10, and basically they're thinking they really are onto something, like they really have action. And so I think the tone was set then, and then Garoppolo gets hurt the next year, which wrecked that entire season. But the foundation of that first season and the 0-9 start and the finish with Garoppolo, just having a little bit better at the quarterback position, all of a sudden they're winning these games that they had been losing in the first 9. And so I think that carried into the next year. Garoppolo gets hurt, but Garoppolo had that same charisma to him, to where his teammates loved playing with him. and liked him as a leader. And so when he went down with the ACL and missed the 2018 season after the third game, there was it was a rare case, Carey, where they were building something even while they were losing.
Yeah.
And I think in pro sports, it just doesn't happen, but the Niners were able to do it. It's a testament to Shanahan. Then they come back, they get the pieces dialed, they draft Bosa, and all of a sudden they're going to a Super Bowl. COVID year was a little weird, but that was the COVID year, and then they were right back in, championship game. And to me, they're the favorite, clear-cut favorite in the NFC to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think we started this segment talking about Andy Reid and John Harbaugh, and we finish it saying, if the 49ers finish this job, if Kyle Shanahan leads the 49ers to a Super Bowl, if they get that elusive 6th title, these rankings could look different. You might feel differently about what Kyle Shanahan has done with his body of work as a head coach with the title, and you compare him to the other coaches in the league who've won Super Bowls before. The conversation will look different this offseason if that is the case. On the other side, we're talking who's got their pedal to the metal, sponsored by the Industrial Metal Supply, and we'll look at today's Pascal Siakam trade. JD, Kerry Crowley, you're here on The Leader. It's SportsPhone KNBR 104.5 680, the Sports Leader.
is SportsPhone KNBR. And this is Pedal to the Metal. Sponsored by Industrial Metal Supply on the Sports Leader.
Who's got their pedal to the metal? Well, back here on SportsPhone KNBR, Kerry Crowley, John Dickinson hanging with you until 9 o'clock. And JD, my choice for the day, you can go all over the sports world, but it's got to be the Indiana Pacers executing this trade for Pascal Siakam, nabbing him, pairing him with Tyrese Halliburton, and all of a sudden the balance of power potentially shifts in the Eastern Conference. Pascal Siakam, was he the top player that you kind of expected to move at this year's deadline? And the Pacers jumped the field by getting him so early?
Yeah, I think he had the potential, depending upon where he went, and you know, those that have followed the Dubs OT and just Dubs shows, I mean, he would have been at the top of my list for players that the Warriors potentially could have acquired to try and, you know, get their season on track. I think Siakam is terrific with Tyrese Halliburton. I think that two-man game is going to be tremendous. Siakam can score on the interior. He's a good passer. He's an excellent defender. He can rebound a little bit as well. And so I think, you know, you get Tyrese Halliburton a clear-cut number two and somebody that has championship experience and is a versatile defender as well. I mean, he can defend out on the perimeter, which I think is what you have to have if you're going to be a big, and he plays the four but can also play some small ball five. So for the Pacers to get him and get him for Bruce Brown and Jordan Nwora and 3 first-round picks, I think that's in a lot, like, it's a good deal, I think, for Toronto, but I think it's a steal for the Pacers because they had a lot of, and I talked about this on Just Dubs and Dubs OT, I thought the Pacers had the best package of potential young players to where they could part with a couple of young players and get Siakam and still have, you know, a really nice roster with him and Halliburton leading the way. They didn't have to give up any of their top young players to get him. You know, now they are mortgaging the future a little bit with the 3 first-round picks that are going in the other direction, but they've got. I love this trade for Indiana, and I'm not surprised that Siakam ultimately went there. Bruce Brown's a hell of a player. I wonder what they're going to do. I mean, he could be a real, I think, glue player for a lot of teams if Toronto decides that they want to, you know, end up maybe flipping him again at the deadline. Maybe they are trying to accumulate, really nice rotation players that they can, you know, whenever they end up, you know, making another big move to bring a better player in that he would fit around, although he's only on a 2-year deal. So I wonder if Bruce Brown could end up going somewhere. I think he could help some teams if the Raptors look to do that. But nice deal for Indiana, and I do think Siakam has the potential to be, if he re-signs there, he could be somebody that goes deep into the playoffs with Tyrese Halliburton, and maybe the Pacers, you know, unwillingness to give up players and willingness to give up picks, and the Raptors' ability to accept that offer had something to do with the fact that Siakam, and as a free agent, we don't know if he's going to re-sign or not, and the unknown that comes along with that.
Yeah, well said. I think the thing that struck me about this deal is felt like it came together so fast. I mean, last night we hear that they're deep in talks from Sam Amick and Shams that the Pacers and the Raptors have potentially got an agreement, and today it happens, and we're still 3 weeks from the trade deadline. I mean, there's still a lot of NBA teams that are deciding which way they're going to go here, and Siakam, I always thought was potentially the biggest name to move, but any surprise at the timing of this deal?
No, yes and no. I mean, I'm not surprised that Indiana wound up being the team because I thought they had the most assets. I thought last night when the report broke with Shams and with Sam Amick, to me that was almost a last call. That was like last call.
Yeah, good idea.
Like it's like to me it was that's the kind of thing that leaks when basically Toronto was telling, I don't know if it was the Warriors or Dallas or some of the other teams that involved. I know Sacramento had dipped out because Siakam had said he wasn't going to be willing to re-sign there. I think the Kings weren't going to be willing to trade Keegan Murray there either. So I think that kind of flamed out within the last week and a half. But it felt as if it was last call up for, up at auction. If you want to make a run, here's the best offer that we have, and we're going to take it unless somebody else blows us away. So I think that was sort of the alert across the bow of the NBA last night to see if anybody would step in and better the offer, and nobody did. They closed the bidding, and Toronto felt comfortable enough doing the deal, although we got to see who the 3 picks are and how the Raptors use those picks, but I'm inclined to think they didn't get enough for Siakam, even though Siakam may only wind up being a rental for Indiana.
Yeah, really fascinating deal. And who's got their pedal to the metal? New segment here on Sports Phone. We'll play in the 8 o'clock hour every evening on this new show that we've got 6 to 9 Monday through Friday night. Tonight, it's the Indiana Pacers for pulling off the deal that nets Pascal Siakam. Well, JD, you referenced this earlier that you've talked about Siakam on Dubs OT and on Just Dubs. And tonight, of course, no Dubs OT following the tragic news earlier today that Warriors assistant coach Dejan Milojević has passed away at the age of 46. Tragic situation. News reports coming out today that he'd suffered a heart attack at a restaurant in the Salt Lake City area at a team dinner. Travesty, and that doesn't even begin to describe what the Golden State Warriors are going through right now. I think we send all of our thoughts to the Warriors organization, the people around the NBA, and the family of Dejan Milojević, who obviously had such a profound impact on the people that he worked with, not only in the Warriors organization, but around the league, credited with, helping so many big men, including Nikola Jokic in his development in the NBA. I know that you've covered the Warriors closely, and you could see his impact. Just would love for you to chime in here and discuss what is a really, really difficult day, not just for the Warriors, but for the NBA, the basketball community, and the Milojević family.
Yeah, I mean, just it's tragic, and 46 years old, my goodness. And I mean, this is somebody that was a legend overseas. Whether it was the Serbian national team and working with Nikola Jokic. I mean, he's basically a mentor to Nikola Jokic, and a lot of the Serbian players, chiming in who had personal relationships with him. He was brought in 2021 when the Warriors made the decision that they were really going to try to invest more into player development and really big man development. I mean, he was a big man coach. And with James Wiseman, at that point, coming off of his rookie season, he was somebody that the Warriors wanted to go get and really had an impact. I think twofold. It was on the younger players and trying to work with James Wiseman, but it was also the veteran players. I know Kevon Looney was somebody that was as big a fan as anybody on the roster. He had credited Milojević for really helping his game, helping his rebounding improve. It's also tough because he was somebody that was so joyous, and you see in the team statement from Steve Kerr. I mean, he was just somebody that everybody liked being around, and for it to happen. I mean, there's never. I mean, it's tragic regardless. But for this to be, with the team at the end of a road trip, having a team dinner, kind of a team bonding type deal, and to have this happen, and to have it be somebody that is just so beloved for happiness and joy and vibrance and smiling and positivity, I think it has to be. I mean, just especially crushing to the Warriors, and let's also not forget. I mean, wife and 2 kids. I mean, that's on top of everything else. Just brutal. Just brutal. I know he'd won a couple of medals. He was in a multi-time MVP overseas. So just, I mean, a terrific player, coach, mentor, husband, father. I mean, just all boxes checked. Personality. It really is just a tragic loss, far too young.
Yeah, and I saw a tweet earlier today from Brandon Pajemski who said, he'd learned so much in such a short amount of time with the Warriors assistant. But maybe the most important thing he learned was Milojević told him, always smile. Always smile, and you bring up that sense of joy and how important that is. Because I think that, anyone who follows sports, anyone who follows a team, a franchise, you fall in love with the personalities. You grow up rooting for a team because of not the piece of clothing that they wear that, family members your family have rooted for years and generations in the past. You fall in love with the people who wear that jersey, who give you memories, with the coaches who make tremendous moments possible. And this was someone who was a coach at one of the most joyous times in the Warriors organization when they won the 2022 NBA title. This is someone who had a profound impact on the young players in this organization. This is someone who, going beyond the Warriors, like you said, he touched the lives of so many European basketball players coming over to the United States, and you saw an outpouring of love and support across the league for him today. Just 46 years old, Dejan Milojević, who will be remembered for all of the contributions that he made to the game of basketball. But like you said, JD, a wife and 2 kids, and I think that is the most tragic part in all of this on what is a very difficult day for the Warriors as an organization, the NBA as a whole, and of course the Milojević family. So all of our thoughts are with them. And I think that, out of respect for all of those who are grieving this situation, grieving this passing, we're not going to talk Warriors tonight. We're not going to talk X's and O's, and we're going to, give the Warriors their space, give the Warriors fans, their community, their space, and anyone who, who was close to Milojević grieving tonight. And we want to send our thoughts, send our appreciation to them, let them know that we're here for them, and that this Bay Area sports family, people support each other and people are with each other. So on the other side, this show will continue. SportsPhone KNBR. You're listening. John Dickinson, Kerry Crowley, KNBR 104.5, 680, the sports leader.
The nighttime is the right time for SportsPhone KNBR. Let's go on the sports leader. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
We are back here on the leader, Kerry Crowley, John Dickinson, closing up the shop, hanging with you until 9 o'clock, live and local every weeknight until 9. And yes, folks, even on nights when the Warriors play, you'll still be hearing Dubs OT. JD, 49ers on Saturday, Levi Stadium, Green Bay Packers. I opened up this era of SportsPhone last night asking every caller the same question. Who's the X factor in the non-Brock Purdy department for Saturday's game against Green Bay? And we had a ton of different answers. They ranged from Christian McCaffrey in the obvious category to Buck and San Mateo calling in and saying it's the groundskeeper because you've got rain in the forecast. So let's just throw a few of those out there. From your perspective, I'll throw some from my perspective. I didn't really take that opportunity last night. So who do you see needing to have a big game for the 49ers against Green Bay?
Well, with the weather that's anticipated, I think there are two offensive players that basically are considered all weather in terms of the skill players, and I think it's McCaffrey, but the other one is Debo.
Yeah,
Debo Samuel, I think is in the elements somebody that you want to have on your side, and you don't hesitate to get the ball to, especially if it's as a complement in the running game. And so I think Debo. Offensively, it's kind of funny calling him an X factor because he's really a primary factor, I think. But defensively, I think it could be Mooney Ward, Charvarius Ward in coverage going up against the young Packers receivers, and he's been, I think, an All-Pro type player this year, and been a little banged up at times, been a little up and down at times, but the ups have been extremely high. The highs have been high for Charvarius Ward. So I think Charvarius Ward, a veteran, a guy that's been through some stuff in terms of the playoffs and playing in big games, I think there's an advantage there for him against this standout young Packer wide receiver group and the young quarterback in Jordan Love, especially if the 49ers are getting pressure. I think this could be a Mooney Ward interception type of a game, or even multi-interception type of a game to really put an imprint on it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Kyle Shanahan talked about it today. Jordan Love has not turned the ball over. This Green Bay offense has been good. This Green Bay team has gotten back into the postseason picture, punched its playoff ticket, and then took down the Dallas Cowboys because it has played turnover-free football, because Jordan Love has done such a good job. But it's a Packers offensive line that's given him great protection and has not faced a group quite like this 49ers defensive line. So I love the call of Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Hargrave, and Chase Young up front. If they all get pressure, if they do stuff to Green Bay's offensive line that Green Bay hasn't seen this year, Jordan Love throws it up for grabs. It could be a huge day for Mooney Ward. I think one of my biggest questions for the 49ers going into Saturday's game is, what do they do with the safety position opposite Sean Gibson? Because you've got Jair Brown, who's been a little banged up. You've got Logan Ryan, the veteran, who's been a little banged up. And I was listening earlier this week, I think it may have been yesterday, Dante Whitner hopped on with Papa in London. He said, play Logan Ryan, play the veteran, because he's been there before. How do you see this shaking out with what the 49ers do in the secondary?
Yeah, no, I think, I think Jair Brown ends up, he's going to be out there. I think they've got some options. I mean, Ryan being healthy is important, but I think they've shown a propensity to mix it up and kind of play matchups and play the hot hand, or play the guy that they feel is best for the team that they're going to be facing. So I think they feel they have enough capable bodies to be able to have enough of what they need to get through the game and get the job done. But it is, when you start looking around at areas of vulnerability for the 49ers, Kerry, I think that is one area where you think, all right, maybe in the pass game in the middle of the field, the top of the defense, could there be some potential for problems there? I know the Niners have been vulnerable to the run a little bit at different points, but no, I think they feel they've got enough to be able to get through the game, and for the most part are as healthy as they need to be going into this thing. I mean, you just start bouncing around to all the different players that show up on the injury report, and really other than Hufanga, who was lost for the year, the 49ers are for the most part, and Cleveland Farrell, but they've got Chase Young now, so there's some options there. But for the most part, this team is whole. And a lot of times the healthier team is the team that winds up making the run and getting all the way to the Super Bowl and winning it. And I think the Niners have to like, at least going into this thing in their first game, the position that they have.
Yeah, I would imagine most of the guys who are on the Packers injury report will play right now, but there are so many players coming out of this Dallas game with a questionable designation or a limited designation at practice right now that I think that the 49ers have to love the fact that they got the extra rest. They were able to give themselves that extra rest against LA in Week 18 by not having to put someone like Brock Purdy in jeopardy in that game. And JD, I've gone nearly 2 entire shows on SportsPhone now without talking a whole lot about Brock Purdy and what he will look like on Saturday against the Green Bay Packers. And I think we saw a glimpse last season, but really, I don't know that the playoff stage is all that different for someone like Brock because, the way that he got thrown in there last year in such unexpected fashion after Jimmy Garoppolo's injury, after Trey Lance's injury, 49ers chose to keep Purdy over Sudfeld on their roster. I think that, yes, there are big stages, and yes, there are moments when, as a player, you realize maybe you haven't seen this before, or you haven't been there before, or things start to get to you. But for Brock, it's got to be hard to reach the level of suddenness or unexpectedly thrust into a spotlight like he was last year. And he's so calm, cool, collected. I just don't know that, hosting a playoff game with all the expectations, I don't know that all of that will get to him in the same way it maybe gets to other players who are on that stage early in their career.
No, and he went through it last year, Kerry.
Exactly.
Which I think is that's the big thing, is the fact that, he got a lot of those jitters out. He had whether it was being amped up or being nervous or whatever it was, and he spoke to that today when he came to the podium after 49ers practice late in the afternoon at Levi's. I mean, the fact that he kind of went back and watched, a little bit of even last year to get himself, kind of grounded and, thinking back, giving himself sort of a template to think back at the big moments that he had been in and just how he kind of controlled his temperament and his emotions and some of, being wound up and the nerves or any of those different things that come with it. So, yeah, even as a relatively inexperienced quarterback with basically, the 3 playoff starts, but it's really 2 playoff starts, he's in a really good position. I mean, he's a lot more comfortable. And, George Kittle addressed this in the locker room today, just the fact that, what's the biggest advantage for experience? It's an understanding of the intensity, right? And I think, the Packers got a taste of that in Dallas, but it's understanding that each level, each round that you go, that intensity continues to get ramped up another notch. And I think the Niners know that because they've played multiple of these second weekend games, right? They've played 19, 21, 22. They've played in the championship games. Some of these guys have played in that Super Bowl. And so a big part of their core knows what they're up against as things continue to level up. And so I think that is one advantage, even though the Packers do have some players that have been playoff tested in recent memory. They're a very, very, very young team. And even Brock Purdy, I think, has the calm of a veteran in a lot of ways because of the experience that he was able to gain last year. And I think just from an X's and O's standpoint, there are yards to be had on the Green Bay Packers defense, both running the football and throwing the football. So having a relaxed Brock Purdy, I think, is going to be key for the 49ers to come out and look like themselves, score early, score early, score often, get some stops, and put games away, toward halftime and in third quarters of games. That's been a real key thing for the Niners this year is they've really owned around halftime. They get off to great starts. They own the before and after halftime, and then they've put a lot of these games away in third quarters and turned a lot of them into blowouts.
Yeah, and I do think you mentioned the fact that there are yards to be gained against this Green Bay Packers team. It's easy to forget that it was only a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, that folks in Green Bay were calling for defensive coordinator Joe Barry's job. I mean, the Packers were on the outside of the playoff picture. They couldn't stop the run, and people wanted Matt LaFleur to make a big change. And ultimately, he did not make that change, but it spoke to the fact that Green Bay has just had a really difficult time this season stopping the run. And yes, they've racked up 15 sacks in their last 4 games. They're getting after the passer better than they were earlier in this season. But this kind of plays into the 49ers' favor. They're a team that wants to establish the run, every single game, but especially in the postseason. We touched on the fact that Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel are rested, so the 49ers have those 2 options. And I do think, JD, that Kyle Shanahan is more inclined to use Deebo out of the backfield during the postseason than maybe he would be during the regular season. And if not out of the backfield, throwing him those easy screens on the outside on the perimeter, letting Juwan Jennings and George Kittle go block for him.
Yeah, I wonder about those if there are some elements in play, just because those can get a little loose sometimes with the ability to handle. But yeah, I think in the run game for sure they've been able to, mainly because of McCaffrey, keep Deebo fresh to where they haven't had to basically run it the way they had to run it 2 years ago just to get into the playoffs, and that becomes an added dimension for this 49ers team in the playoffs. And so, yeah, it to me comes down to trusted ball handlers, and McCaffrey's number one. Purdy as the quarterback certainly is, but I think Deebo Samuel is somebody you just want to get the ball in his hands. Kittle is somebody that's really physical. You get it to him. You let him go to work. I mean, the physicality typically wins, Kerry, a lot of these playoff games, and the Niners have proven themselves to be the most physical team, really game in and game out for the most part. And when they haven't won, they haven't been. Yeah. And so I think that becomes something to look at. But I think on paper, you look at these, this matchup specifically, the advantage in the physicality department should go to the Niners, and they've been able, different iterations of this Packers team, but they've been able, the Niners have, to be to basically put them out physically and make them tap out physically in some of these games.
Yeah, you go back a few years ago to Lambeau Field when the 49ers were visiting and Aaron Rodgers was coming off the great regular season. The 49ers defense absolutely shut them down. It was the defense that set the tone from a physicality standpoint. And then you go back to the Packers in the postseason 2019. It was the offense, Raheem Mostert with the record-setting game at the running back position. Kyle Shanahan called run play after run play, and there was no reason to pass the ball, no reason to air it out in the second half of that game because the 49ers were so dominant from a physical perspective, and I expect that Shanahan will come out with that same type of game plan at Levi Stadium, much like they had a few years ago against Green Bay. Even though the personnel is different, the personnel is also different in favor of the 49ers. I'll take Christian McCaffrey running the ball. One last thing, I did look up Brock Purdy's playoff debut last year. 18 of 30, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 332 through the air. My goodness, what a game.
Yeah, no doubt. And weather was a concern in that game as well against Seattle, at least coming into it. I think it, for the most part, held off, if memory serves, until after, and then the downpour sort of started right after that. But weather and rain has been an issue for the Niners. The whole wet ball question, I think that's something that, need to keep an eye on moving forward. I don't think it should be something that changes the game, in favor of the Packers or anything like that, but definitely not something that needs to be kept an eye toward as you look at the odd ways Purdy seemed to be uncomfortable in that game in Cleveland, specifically going back to October.
Absolutely. Well, JD, cannot thank you enough for stopping by for this 8 o'clock hour. Really appreciate your time this evening. And, hey, this is going to be fun. Live and Local's back on the air here on KNBR, 6 to 9 every weeknight. You got Dubs OT and, of course, just Dubs on the weekend. We're live. We're rolling. This is great.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. Happy to be with you. And, Dubs OT coming back, obviously, when the time is right.
Mm-hmm.
I know, no game tonight for obvious reasons, and may not be a game on Friday night as well. But, just all the best to the Warriors organization as they deal with Dejan Milojević and his tragic passing.
No question about it. Well said. And want to thank our producer tonight, Rafael Corral. Want to thank Greg Silver on the board. JD, want to thank you for stopping by. And most importantly, want to thank the loyal listeners of KNBR for lighting up the phone lines. You made this Sports Phone a special one. Thank you so much for listening. KNBR 104.5, 680, the sports leader.